I'm going to tell you about 8 iconic Washington, D.C. experiences. Things that you can do here when you visit that you can't do anywhere else in the country or the world. Because when you travel, you want to do the things in a destination that you can't do back home, or that you can't get at any tourist destination. That's what makes travel great. And the good news is that Washington, D.C. has a ton of experiences like this. Before we get into it though, hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and hacks for visitors who want to explore Washington, D.C. And I'm curious to know, how many things on this list have you experienced? And what do you still have left to do? Leave a comment down there and let me know. The first iconic Washington, D.C. experience you must have is to see the national monuments and memorials. The Lincoln Memorial is the most visited site in the entire city, and for good reason. It's amazing. And for some people, seeing this monument is the highlight of their entire trip. But Lincoln is not the only national monument, and it makes me a little sad that Lincoln gets so much attention, but many of the other monuments nearby don't. And one way to make sure you don't miss any of the monuments is to sign up for a guided tour. On a Trip Hacks DC private tour, we see the Lincoln Memorial, Vietnam Memorial, Korean War Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, World War II Memorial, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, and Jefferson Memorial, all in one go. And when you see them on a tour, you get to experience the hidden symbolism that's packed into all of these sites that you will probably miss if you're just trying to DIY it on your own. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience that you must have is to stand in the rotunda of the Capitol and marvel at the amazing architecture of the dome. Yes, a lot of state houses and state capitals are modeled on this building and have their own similar domes, but there is only one OG US Capitol. You do have to sign up for a tour if you want to have this experience. It's free, but you do want to get that reservation in advance. And good news, I have an entire video about exactly how to do that. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience you must have is to visit some of the Smithsonian museums. Smithsonian is not a single place, but a collection of many museums all over the city. And I can tell you, number-wise, what the most popular Smithsonian museums are. But I want you to consider something first. The Natural History Museum is an extremely popular Smithsonian museum. However, it is just one of many amazing natural history museums all over the world. So while it's great and very fun, it's not the most unique museum in the collection, compared to places like the American History Museum, or Postal Museum, or Portrait Gallery. Those are more unique museums that you're not going to find in every big city. But in the end, the museums that are best for you are the ones that are the most interesting to you. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience you must have is to spend some time hanging out in a neighborhood. Every city has neighborhoods, but Washington, D.C. has a few truly unique neighborhoods that you really won't find anywhere else. Most Washington, D.C. tourists spend a relatively large amount of their time downtown and near the National Mall, and a relatively small amount of their time in any of the neighborhoods. The two most famous neighborhoods for tourists are Georgetown and Capitol Hill. When you go to these neighborhoods, you'll see lots of old row houses and really interesting pieces of history. But those are not the only neighborhoods worth considering. Last year, I recorded a podcast episode with 5 additional neighborhoods that I think you should consider when you come here on a trip. So check out the video description so you can listen to that. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience you must have is to eat a famous local food. Washington, D.C. does not have a single iconic food like other cities do. But a few things we do have are half-smoked sausages and wings with mumbo sauce. And if you want to find out about all of our local famous foods, I made an entire video dedicated to that topic. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience you must have is to take in a view. Washington, D.C. is definitely unique in that it is the largest city in the United States that does not have a single skyscraper. And no, that rule has nothing to do with the Washington Monument. That's a total myth that I busted in a previous video. But as a result of the Height Act, the Washington Monument is by far the tallest building in the city, at 555 feet tall. And on a clear day, you can see for miles in all directions. More of a hidden gem when it comes to taking in a view is to go to the top of the old post office tower. Even though it's only about half as tall as the Washington Monument, it has great views down Pennsylvania Avenue and of course of the Washington Monument itself. And it's great because it does not require advance tickets or reservations. Just show up during operating hours and you can go to the top. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience you must have is to see the world famous cherry blossoms. I know, this is way easier said than done. And I kind of sound like a hypocrite because I'm always telling people not to try to time the blossoms. But you cannot deny that this is an iconic DC experience. So if you live nearby or ever get a chance to travel here for an extended period in the spring, you have to do it. The next iconic Washington, D.C. experience to have is to ride the Metro. If you're a world traveler, and I'm guessing you might be, you've probably ridden a subway or metro before. So this experience might not technically be brand new. But our metro has these huge vaulted stations that are really one of a kind. And there are a lot of other really interesting and unique quirks about our metro that make it different than many of its peers around the world. And the best way to get yourself prepared is to watch my Metro Do's and Don'ts video, which you can do by clicking or tapping right over here. Enjoy your trip.